A warm welcome to the news at this hour on NT International. I'm Elizabeth Omori. Now let's take the headlines. President Buhari signs into law 2020 finance budget bill. Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association donates to internally displaced persons camp in honor of Nigeria's fallen heroes. Plus, French president and leaders from Sahel region meet to discuss military operations against Islamist militants in West Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. Now let's begin with the signing of the 2020 Finance Bill. President Muhammadu Buhari on Monday signed into law the 2020 Finance Bill following its passage by the National Assembly and subsequently forwarded by the legislature to the President for assent. A statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, indicates that the bill is anchored on the 5 strategic objectives of achieving incremental but necessary changes to the nation's fiscal laws. They include promoting fiscal equity by mitigating instances of regressive taxation, reforming domestic tax laws to align with global best practices, introducing tax incentives for investments in infrastructure and capital markets, supporting micro, small and medium enterprises in line with the ease of doing business reforms, and raising revenue for the government. And away from the Finance Bill, the House of Representatives has opened an investigation into an allegation that 1 trillion naira was not accounted for by ministries, departments and agencies of government from 2009 to 2019. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that another committee saddled with that assignment has commenced an investigative hearing.
The investigation is consequent upon a motion raised on the floor of the House, which alleged that in the last 10 years, monies appropriated by the National Assembly for the execution of capital and constituency projects were not fully utilized.
The constitution of this ad hoc committee will enable the House to take a critical evaluation of all monies appropriated for. This is not a witch hunt, but a fact-finding assignment with a view to giving us opportunity to have value for our money and catapult Nigeria to a position of excellence.
Chairman of the ad hoc committee, Representative Francis Charles Ujiok, said the House is determined to find out how much of the appropriated funds were released, for which projects, amounts utilized, and the balance remitted into the Federation accounts at the end of each financial year.
You can recall that the National Assembly a few months ago were accused of having been released the sum of 1 trillion to fund ZIPs, and by observation, nothing seems to have been done. It is important to note that these funds for ZIP are not released to National Assembly members.
The committee directed affected ministries, agencies and departments of government to furnish it with all required documents to ensure a thorough exercise. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And Musa Babalio is standing by for happenings in the financial sector.
The federal government has secured $600 million investment to develop the country's iron ore deposit. The investment, coming from Indian investors, is ranked the biggest so far in non-oil sector.
To encourage them and to help them to run efficiently, and not only run efficiently, but to encourage them to expand and increase their production.
Meanwhile, the federal government is to establish a foreign trade academy. Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment says the academy will be established for the purpose of improving the ease of doing business in the country.
The issue of business is becoming more competitive globally. Unless a country is positioned very well and well articulate in policy and in international negotiation, that country may be left behind.
In other news, it has been established that Nigerians spent more than 6 billion naira in 2019 to watch films in the cinemas. The figures were provided by the Cinemas and Exhibitors Association of Nigeria. In the meantime, the Nigerian Stock Exchange began the week with 0.75% gain this Monday in 5,377 deals.
Thank you so much, Musa. Now, to put the record straight, the Nigerian Geological Survey Agency has visited Abaji community, site of the alleged earthquake said to have occurred on the 10th of January 2020. Saliu Abdullahi was on the entourage that visited the community.
It was a busy weekend for the officials of the Nigerian Geological Survey Agency. The activities here is preparatory to visit Abaji, the location of an alleged earthquake. The journey took the monitoring team through to the agency's monitoring center along the way. At the main campus of the University of Abuja,
nothing has happened in Abuja as far as this instrument is concerned, because it has not given us any signal. It has not recorded any event.
The need to harmonize these results boost the team's effort as they made it to Abaji town. Normal business activities were seen unhindered as residents, including the traditional ruler, owner of Abaji, shared their experiences.
There's not any earthquake in that. We haven't experienced this before. This is the first time that we're hearing from you people that there's something of that nature. So that's why people are here. I want to go and find out. We can't stop you. Even though you need some people to assist you there, we have many people that accompany you to that area. But you're not aware?
I was born here, grew up here. So I have never, for one day, heard about this.
I've no experience that country here. Because I'm staying here almost 10 years now.
I never hear anything about quake. You call them earthquake.
This is Abatua, an extension of Abaji Area Council. According to the Nigerian Geological Survey Agency's GPS, this is the epicenter of the alleged 3.5 magnitude earthquake.
What struck me most is this: if it happened in Abaji, that impact will have affected somebody in Jere. But you see here, nobody is aware of that impact.
The devastation that could occur due to the magnitude of the alleged earthquake, according to the agency, could better be imagined in a community where normal daily activities were seen going on and the ecosystem intact. From Abaji Area Council, Salihu Abdullahi, NTA News.
And from geological matters, we now move to the judiciary. The Supreme Court has adjourned hearing on the 6th governorship election appeals slated for hearing this Monday to Tuesday, 14th of January 2020. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, who led a 7-man panel of justices, gave the order. Dele Atumbi reports.
The Supreme Court was filled to capacity as appellants and respondents in the matters, as well as their supporters stormed the complex of the Apex Court, which is the final arbiter on the matters. The situation made crowd control a Herculean task for the security operatives, which made the 7-man panel of justices to first of all rise for the situation to be brought under control. After reconvening, 6 appeals were slated for hearing and judgments. 6 appeals are matters bordering on the conduct of the governorship election on March 9, 2019 in Bauchi, Kano, Plateau, Benue, Imo, and Sokoto states. Apart from these appeals, there were 4 other cross appeals by governors of Kano, Plateau, Imo, and Benue states. After the adoption of the final address by the counsel to the appellant in the Kano matter, Adegboyega Awomolo, SAN, counsel to INEC, Joseph Daudu, SAN, was about adopting his final address when the court had to rise for the second time due to what the Chief Justice of Nigeria described as unforeseen circumstances, with the hope that the court would reconvene soon. However, while all counsel in the matters were waiting for the reconvening of the court, it adjourned proceedings till Tuesday for all the 6 main appeals.
Well, the implication is by tomorrow, whichever panel that is constituted or reconstituted will take the appeals. So it doesn't matter. It's one Supreme Court. We are expecting 7 justices to constitute the panel, and whichever panel we see here tomorrow will take the case. It's as simple as that. All the parties are enjoined to come back here tomorrow for the hearing of the appeals. none of the appeals had been heard and determined.
So to our own understanding, is for them to reconsult the panelists that will hear all this. That's all, as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing unusual about it.
The Apex Court is expected to adjudicate on the 6 main appeals and the 4 cross appeals. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
Let's now talk education. The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board announced the suspension of the use of the National Identity Number for 2020 UTME following outcries and technical challenges. Correspondent Olayinka Ojo was at the National Identification Management Commission headquarters in Abuja for a situation report. This is what he brought back.
Registration for the 2020 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination begins on Monday, and acquiring the National Identification Number was a condition for registering. A week before the commencement recorded large turnouts of would-be candidates who stormed various registration centers across the country, a development that led to overcrowding and anxiety. Just when panic was setting in for many who feared that they may not get the NIN number before the expiration of the 5-week registration period, JAMB announced the suspension of the use of National Identification Number as criteria to sit for the 2020 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination and direct entry.
For 2020, we are not going to use NIN as prerequisite for registration. We are therefore suspending this till subsequent year 2021.
Employ all parents to students registering JAMB in 2021 to ensure they enroll themselves and their children in good time.
It was expected that the announcement will ease situations at the National Identification Number registration centers, but the visit to the National Identity Management Commission headquarters in Abuja showed the contrary, as many prospective UTME candidates still turned out to register.
Not just for the purpose of the JAMB, I want to be a verified citizen of Nigeria.
As a good citizen of Nigeria, I need to have my national ID card in case anything come up.
It's there because you're a citizen of this country, and it's a necessity, not a probability.
While Rejoice Harrison, Joseph Miracle and others are getting enrolled, these group who are glad that the National Identification Number is no longer a criteria are already at one of the CBT center to register.
This is my printout now, and I'm ready to go for my registration.
It's to wait and write my JAMB actually, after all the process.
Whatever the case, the fact that many prospective candidates still find it necessary to get the National Identification Number, despite the 1-year suspension, raises the question of whether citizens are beginning to prioritize their civic responsibility without necessarily compelled to do so. Olayinka Ojo, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission says it will partner the National Youth Service Corps to fashion out easy ways legitimate and qualified Nigerian graduates from foreign tertiary institutions can participate in the 1-year national service to the fatherland. Chairman, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, said this when she visited the Director General of the NYSC, Brigadier General Shuaibu Ibrahim, at his office in Abuja. Olayinka Ojo reports that the chairman of the commission also urged the NYSC to create a diaspora desk for the scheme.
There are second, third generation of Nigerians that were born abroad. They were born abroad, they've never been to Nigeria. But with the emphasis on diaspora and with the emphasis on coming home to be part of the development at home, they really want to come back and do their youth service. So how do we go about it? How do we put the structure?
Of the NYSC, Brigadier General Shuaibu Ibrahim, while reiterating the need to harness the potential of the commission and that of core members, appealed for the setting up of an interagency ministerial committee.
On the assembly of a DEX officer for DEX office for the commission, we also will avail you of that opportunity. Just as you know, it will be very important, as I discussed with you in my office, maybe there's a need to set up an interagency or ministerial committee.
You're watching the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja. Stay tuned, more reports ahead when we return. thanks for staying with us. Internally displaced persons at a camp in Garku have the forthcoming Armed Forces Remembrance Day to thank for a series of humanitarian gestures bestowed on them by the Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association, DEPOA, in honor of the nation's troops. Najato Tijani reports.
Mama Ramatu cannot hide her joy at receiving some food and other relief items. The widow and mother of 8 in her 60s is a resident of the internally displaced persons camp, Gurku. Mama Juliana is another widow with 9 children. Having been rescued by soldiers at the forefront of the war against insurgency and the generosity of camp founder Marcus Gamache, as well as the Gurku community, the residents of the IDP camp find themselves receiving more of such goodwill thanks to the Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association, DEPOA.
We should collectively come together to assist the less privileged, especially those displaced from their own communities due to insurgency.
The Goodwill is an offshoot of activities commemorating the 2020 Armed Forces Remembrance Day. And once again, the troops find themselves defending not only the territorial integrity, but the dignity of the people. Naja'atu Tajani, NTA News.
Into the foreign scene, French president and his counterparts from the Sahel region are due to meet to discuss military operations against Islamist militants in West Africa as figures behind the conflict is slipping out of control. Reports say attacks on army positions and civilians across the region are occurring with increasing regularity despite the presence of thousands of troops from both countries affected in France. Last year saw the highest annual death toll due to armed conflict in the region since 2012. Last week, 89 soldiers from Niger were killed in the latest attack, with dozens of deaths among regional armed forces. France has also suffered significant casualties, losing 13 soldiers in a helicopter crash in Mali in November. For more stories making headlines on the foreign scene, Joyce Ometu is our guide.
Many thanks for joining me on this segment. Now, reports from Philippines says a volcano has begun spewing lava as authorities warn that a hazardous eruption is possible within hours or days. In the early hours of Monday, a weak flow of lava began seeping out of Taal volcano, located some 4 to 5 miles south of the capital, Manila, triggering the mass evacuation of 8,000 people from the area. Taal is the Philippines' second most active volcano. And a court in Pakistan has overturned the death sentence handed down to former President Pervez Musharraf by declaring the legal process unconstitutional. General Musharraf had challenged the formation of a special court which found him guilty of treason last December. On Monday, the Lahore court sided with the exiled general who seized power in 1999 coup and was president from 2001 to 2008. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said he will seek justice for those killed on board an Ukrainian passenger plane downed by Iran. Mr. Trudeau spoke in Edmonton, Alberta, at a vigil for the 57 Canadians killed in the disaster. The Prime Minister promised to pursue answers from Iran, which admitted its military shot down the plane in error, killing all 176 people on board. That's it from here. Thanks for watching. I am Joyce Umitu.
Now to religious matters. It has been 10 days since pilgrims from Taraba State, northeast Nigeria, visited the Holy Land to fulfill their spiritual rejuvenation. Ruth Aguela reports that for the pilgrims, it was a moment of nostalgia as they make their last tour.
Typical on a journey like this, they have walked, toiled, and even become one big family in the past few days. To crown the tour, Cana in Galilee was the first site on the checklist. a place where Jesus performed his first miracle at a wedding when he turned water into wine, as written in the Holy Book. This church was built 140 years ago over the original structures to commemorate the event and to preserve the remains. As the place of the first miracle, they said, people usually don't leave without making a wish from God. Mount Tabor was next, said to be the highest mountain in South Galilee, where this church is standing tall, about 2,000 feet below sea level, built in 1924 to commemorate the transfiguration of Jesus Christ after his resurrection. For the pilgrims, it was time to seek the divine face of God.
It is good that we are here.
With a feeling of nostalgia, the pilgrims took time to reminisce as they bid the holy city farewell.
It has been so wonderful from the beginning up to this moment where we have followed the path of Christ. It has really built my faith.
This is my first time of coming to Jerusalem. My life going home, I know Jesus has helped me.
I have read, I have seen, and I have touched. It increased my faith. If I go back home, I will be a complete church person in my life.
We say that it is a journey into the Holy Land, but it is also a journey into yourselves as pilgrims. It's something that strengthens you.
They have come, they have sinned, and they have conquered. And yes, they will meet all the places Jesus once touched, once walked, but for them, it is a life-changing experience that will linger on for a very long time. From Nazareth, Ruth Aguela, NTA News.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari on Sunday evening spoke to Nigerian president on telephone to commiserate with him, the government and people of Niger Republic over the terrorist attack of January 9, 2020 in Chinagodra, which killed scores of soldiers in a military base. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, indicates that President Buhari expressed deep sympathy and condolences to the families, friends and colleagues of the victims. Condemning the heinous attack by the terrorists, the Nigerian leader assured his Nigerian counterpart that Nigeria will continue to work closely with his country and other international partners to overcome terrorist and violent extremism. Next is sports update.
Team Nigeria 1 lost its first match to Team Benin 2, 1-2 at 18-21, 21-17 and 20-22. While Team Nigeria 2 beat Team Benin 1, 2-0 at 21-14 and 21-10. Nigeria finally beat Benin 2-1 via golden set at 15-12. The second match saw Nigeria beat Niger 2-0 in the two major matches played to qualify to the next stage, placing second behind Niger. Ahead of the forthcoming African Nations Cup in Tunisia, Nigeria's senior male handball team on Sunday in the city of Tanzania, Tunisia, defeated Democratic Republic of Congo 25-21 in the fourth warm-up friendly match. The president of the Handball Federation of Nigeria, Sam Ocheo, said he is happy to have given them the necessary tool to excel.
We are still at developmental stage. We've not gotten to the finished product yet. So we are still work in progress, and we'll keep working and working until we become number one in Africa.
Nigeria, which is drawn in Group B alongside Angola, Gabon and Libya, will be playing its first match against Angola as the tournament kicks off on the 16th of January. Nigeria, as the only African country, will be making another attempt at qualifying for Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games as the West African nation battle 33 others in the men and 29 teams in the women at the 2020 World Team Olympic Qualifying Tournament holding in Portugal from January 22 to 26. The International Table Tennis Federation, ITTF, has confirmed the 5-man contingent of Nigeria's men team made up of Haruna Quadri, Olajide Omotayo, Segun Toriola, Bode Abiodun, and Taiwo Mati to the tournament. The women will be represented by Edem Ofiong, Funke Oshonaike, Fatima Bello, Ajoke Ojomu, and Cecilia Akpan. The tournament will give Nigeria another avenue to qualify for Tokyo 2020 after missing the continental sole ticket to Egypt at the 2019 African Games in Morocco. With sports update, Olumide Guntola, NTA News.
Let's take a quick look at the weather prospect for Nigeria and some other cities around the world. And that ends the news at this hour on ANC International. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And don't forget to join us at 9 p.m. for the network news. Good evening.